Well, there are three really good states, Dwayne, and it's Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware. Those three compete against each other, which is good for you and I. We like states to compete to give the best asset protection laws there are. And so those three compete. And, Delaware is quite popular because, a lot of people on the East Coast are used to Delaware. There are some drawbacks to it. For the issuance of stock, it can get quite expensive. Nevada is good as well. Wyoming has equally great asset protection like Nevada and Delaware. They don't put your name on the state website, so you have some privacy there. People who are looking to see if you're involved with an LLC won't find that out on the Wyoming state website. As well, the annual fee for Wyoming is only $52 a year. So it's pretty inexpensive. Nevada and Delaware are higher. So for those reasons, we like the Wyoming LLC.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke. Today we have Garrett Sutton. Garrett is a practicing corporate law attorney with more than 35 years experience assisting entrepreneurs and real estate investors around the world in protecting their assets and maximizing financial goals. He's also a best-selling author and written numerous books as a Rich Dad advisor with Robert Kiyosaki. Garrett, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and how you doing, my friend?
Thanks for having me, Dwayne. I'm doing great.
All right, looking forward to the discussion. As I mentioned before in the pre-show, that there's so many topics that we can talk about because you've written books on business and a whole bunch of different types of stuff in real estate. But a lot of the guys that listen to this show are active investors, entrepreneurs. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit just to kind of give them their fix about it. But I really appreciate you taking the time in this and during this pandemic period. But before we kick things off, would you mind kind of talking about a little bit about your story and how you got started as an attorney?
Sure. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. I went to the University of California at Berkeley, got my degree, and then went across the Bay to San Francisco to Hastings College of the Law, which is the University of California's law school in San Francisco. And I'd always liked corporations. I don't know why. That was my favorite topic in law school. And so when I graduated law school, I went into corporate law. And I practiced in San Francisco and in Washington, D.C. for a while. And then, the cities got too crowded. So I moved to Reno, Nevada. And, it's a smaller city, plenty of activities, a lot of skiing, which I like to do. And so, and Nevada also has a good corporate law. So it was perfect for that. Raised a family here. And in 2000, I became very fortunate to become associated with Robert Kiyosaki and his Rich Dad, Poor Dad group. And they asked me to write a book, and I wrote one, and then they wanted more. So I've written 6 of them. And, it's been great traveling with Robert and the Rich Dad advisors around not only the United States, but around the world, teaching financial education. There's a thirst for it, not only in the US, but everywhere. And so it's just been really rewarding to help people set up the right entities to protect their businesses and their real estate assets.
Absolutely. And I figured that you're always busy all the time because you mentioned that you're doing a lot of different stuff. But I'm curious, is there a frequently asked question that's coming up since this COVID period that you've been addressing more often than normal?
Dwayne, after COVID-19, people realize that there's going to be more litigation, right? And out of all of this, there's going to be a lot of litigation, landlord, tenant, businesses, and leases. And so the question I get is, why didn't I protect my assets sooner? So people realize that when an event like this happens, it really is kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people that they need to be protected. If you haven't set up that corporation or LLC yet, this is a great wake-up call to set it up now. Now, if the problem has already, if you're going to be sued already, it's too late to set up a corporation or LLC. But people are realizing that when you start that business, you need to have that protection right off the bat.
Mm. And then kind of speaking about asset protection and kind of creating a corporation, what is about the scenario of a limited partner investing into like a syndication? I know a lot of people, they just do it with their name and they invest, and maybe it's just like 50,000 or like a small amount. Do you also recommend limited partners creating a separate entity to invest into another separate LLC investment?
Yeah, as a limited partner, typically you are limited to the amount of money that you put in. But I like having a Wyoming LLC to own that limited partnership interest. And you only need one Wyoming LLC for that. So if you put 50,000 into this limited partnership, your interest is owned by the Wyoming LLC. You put 100,000 into the next limited partnership, it's owned by that Wyoming LLC, the same Wyoming LLC.
Oh, the
So
same one. Okay.
Same
Okay,
one.
good.
Yeah. But as a limited partner, generally you are protected. But I just like having that Wyoming LLC as a barrier to someone coming and trying to get at your limited partnership interest. In some states, they can reach that interest. In others, they can't. But with the Wyoming LLC, it's pretty clear. They cannot get that limited partnership interest if there's a car wreck or some sort of personal litigation involved. So we like that level of protection.
And you kind of talk about why Wyoming. I know a lot of people mention Delaware or just their local, wherever they are, they live at. Why Wyoming?
Well, there are three really good states, Dwayne, and it's Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware. Those three compete against each other, which is good for you and I. We like states to compete to give the best asset protection laws there are. And so those three compete. And, Delaware is quite popular because, a lot of people on the East Coast are used to Delaware. There are some drawbacks to it. For the issuance of stock, it can get quite expensive. Nevada is good as well. Wyoming has equally great asset protection like Nevada and Delaware. They don't put your name on the state website, so you have some privacy there. People who are looking to see if you're involved with an LLC won't find that out on the Wyoming state website. As well, the annual fee for Wyoming is only $52 a year. So it's pretty inexpensive. Nevada and Delaware are higher. So for those reasons, we like the Wyoming LLC.
And can you set up for certain states that require to have like a state LLC? Can you then have the Wyoming go over that and own that separate LLC, then invest in that property in that
Got
state?
it. That's exactly what we do, Dwayne. If you have a property in Virginia, we would have a Virginia LLC on title to the Virginia property. Then the Virginia LLC is owned by the Wyoming LLC for the same reasons we mentioned in the limited partnership example. It's going to be very difficult if you're in a car wreck or you have some sort of personal claim against you. It's really hard for the attorneys to collect from that Wyoming LLC. The other states, California, New York, Utah, are really weak states. The courts will allow you to go in and barge through the LLC and sell all the assets.
Wow. So
we really want to select a state for the holding company that has really strong asset protection laws.
Wow, I definitely learned a lot there. And what about kind of insurance? I have clients and investors that invest in triple net lease properties where the tenant pays all the bills and hold insurance, and even add the owner as co-insured on the property. Do you recommend them getting an additional insurance as well through that layer, or should that be sufficient enough along with the Wyoming LLC and such?
That's a good question. I like the triple net lease properties. I think having that owned by, you have the LLC in the state where the property is located, you have the Wyoming LLC. If the tenant lists you as an additional insured, In some cases, that's enough protection. I have some clients that will also want a policy of their own just for that extra protection, and that's fine. But in many cases, being the additional insured on the policy, which you have to check every year, to make sure you're still listed, but to have that additional insured coverage can be a good thing.
Absolutely. And then for the local landlords that are kind of, running their own properties and dealing with tenants, I know like the federal side have been implementing, no eviction laws or moratoriums and things like that. Can you kind of give some tips about protecting landlords? And I know, of course, that specifically during this period is pretty tough with, the economy and jobs and things like that. But you can kind of just give some general tips on how to protect themselves with tenants.
Well, certainly you're going to use the LLC, right, for the asset protection. You're going to have insurance. Insurance is the first line of defense. But with regard to tenants, each state is a little different. Some states are more landlord friendly. Some states are more tenant friendly. For example, in California now, in certain cities, it's illegal to do a criminal background check on a tenant.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
in Oakland, you can't determine if your tenants have a criminal background. Now, the idea is, it's a noble idea. They want to help the homeless. They want to help people who've just gotten out of prison. That's fine. But for a landlord, that's kind of a tough bill to not be able to see if someone has a criminal background. You know what else is interesting, Dwaine, is that you can still get sued for having hazard, meaning rough tenants in your building. So you can't check on a criminal background, but you get sued for having tough tenants in the building. So that's kind of a catch-22 they haven't figured out. So really, it's important to know what is happening in your local community with regard to landlord-tenant law.
That's definitely important.
Yeah, I have clients that will not invest in some states just because they don't feel like they get a fair shake as a landlord.
And I'm pretty sure you've come up with this a lot, especially now, and I had just mentioned it before we started recording, was the force majeure clause in some of these contracts. And I know some of them are grandfathered in that people have signed that are, existing. But can you talk about, has that been a really big topic that you've been talking about? Because of course, like this pandemic, which was kind of unexpected and it's like an act of God, like people didn't really expect that clause to be activated. But you kind of talk about your interactions and kind of maybe some updates that you've been hearing on your side.
Yeah, it's funny, Dwaine, during law school, we learned about force majeure and no one has ever used it until now. It's a French term that means superior force. And here's a superior force that comes along, which is this pandemic, which upsets everything. And, some people can use this, if it's in the contract, some people can use this as an out, not necessarily in landlord tenant, but, more in a business setting where you're supposed to provide materials. And because of the COVID, you can't provide the materials. Everything's shut down. There's a superior force out there, the COVID, that's preventing you from fulfilling the contract. So that is an acceptable defense that people have. It's interesting, after SARS in 2003, you remember the SARS epidemic that affected China and particularly Canada, rather than US, Canada got hit pretty hard on it. After the SARS epidemic, all the insurance companies put in an exclusion of pandemic and viral outbreaks into their exclusion. So a lot of these insurance companies are on top of it. And again, there's going to be litigation over this for years to come on whether or not you are required to perform, or do you have an out based on force majeure, frustration of purpose, or just an inability to perform.
And that's really a big thing, because you had mentioned that the insurance companies are adjusting, their policies, and it's kind of like you don't really have an option to negotiate out. There's either you take it or you don't take it. But as far as kind of the landlord, what are kind of some of the protections from them? Is it getting more deposit or some type of thing? Because I would expect tenants will probably require them moving forward signing a lease that they want some protection on their stuff, and which is understandably so. what do you kind of see as kind of a compromise that could possibly be a possible win-win for both?
Boy, that's a good question. A compromise. Well, right now we sort of have a compromise in that, we have a moratorium on evictions, and the government is sending out all this money to, business owners and landlords. So it's kind of at a stalemate, right? You can't evict anyone, but yet the government's giving you money on these grants to keep you okay. But at some point in the future, I think, how would you do that in a contract? I guess a landlord would say, even if there's a pandemic, we require you to pay. And then if the government comes in and says we're going to have a moratorium, that would supersede the contract. So, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be continued discussions for years to come. So appreciate you taking a stab at it. You had mentioned, I read one of your blog posts regarding the importance of an end of the year audit. And I know it's some of the elements were making sure your LLC is up to date and, the fees are paid and stuff like that. But you kind of talk about the importance of that, especially kind of most of our conversation revolved around asset protection.
Well, Dwayne, throughout the year you get busy and, you're running your business, you're managing your apartments and you just get busy. And at the end of the year, it's, everybody slows down for the holidays. It's a good time. Maybe you have a little bit of extra time to just think about what you need to do to stay protected, right? You need to pay those annual fees. You need to have the minutes of the meeting of a corporation or an LLC. You just need to make sure that you're following all the corporate formalities so that you can stay protected. And that's one of the jobs that we have at Corporate Direct. Not only do we set up the entities for you, but we help you maintain them, right? We'll make sure that those fees are paid. We'll do the minutes. We give you a book that shows you how to do them. But if you don't want to do them, it's like going to the dentist for some people. If you don't want to do them, we'll help you do them. But at the end of the year, it's just a good time to step back and maybe review your insurance coverages and, review whether you have enough entities or too many entities. It's just a good time to reflect. And we always encourage people to consider that.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely some good tips there. Kind of learn a little bit more about you. I know we kind of went over your story and your bio, but what's kind of a typical work day and do you have any special morning routines?
Well, Dwayne, I'm an early morning riser. I get up early and I have that cup of coffee and I write all these books. So that's when I get my best writing done is, 4:30, 5 in the morning for a couple hours, get the writing done, and then, quick workout, and then I go to work. And, I kind of fade by about 4 o'clock. So,
well, you start early, but you got to.
So that's a good 12 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my routine and it seems to work for me. Everybody has their own. I know plenty of people who write at midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning and I just can't do that.
Yeah, God bless them. I don't know how they do that. Yeah, for me, it's like early in the morning or it's nothing. So
exactly, me too.
And are you using any tools or resources to kind of help manage your day, or kind of you have your team or something that kind of keeps you going?
I have a really good assistant, and she keeps me on track. But I have a pretty good calendar system, and so I'm aware of what I've got to do each day. And each week, you want to know what you have to do the whole week. So I'm on top of that, but everything seems to work right. I don't take on a lot of other legal work besides corporations and LLCs, and maintenance. So we don't get far afield. I don't do securities work anymore. I don't do employment law. I just have a nice narrow niche that, I read all the articles I can within this niche. I don't pretend to know about government regulation law, right? So you just have to specialize.
Absolutely. And you could say with all of the success and kind of, work with entrepreneurs all over the world, what you can say that you're most grateful for?
I'm really grateful that I became associated with Robert Kiyosaki and got to travel the world. And, travel is education. You learn a lot. And, I've met so many people around the world who are interested in financial education and improving their situation. So it's just been really rewarding, Dwaine, to just be involved with that kind of activity.
And then you had mentioned, I know you have books that are on Amazon and all of the, books that you can find them anywhere. How do we get in contact with you? Can you share some contact information?
Sure. Our main website is corporatedirect.com, corporatedirect.com. And then we offer a free 15-minute consult with one of our incorporating specialists. So if you want to talk to us and see if we can help you and, see if there's a connection, you can call 800-600-1760. So 800-600-1760, and just ask for a free 15-minute consultation to talk about setting up a corporation, an LLC. If you need us to be a registered agent in all 50 states, we do that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And again, I know this conversation can go long and wide and stuff like that. And I really appreciate you just kind of give us some updates on some different topics and stuff that most of people that are kind of burning to know. So Garrett, I really appreciate your time. Look forward to connecting with again soon, and take care and have a good week.
All right. Thanks, Dwaine.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.